Introducing Richard Witbreuk. Our guest speaker, Richard Witbreuk, will share insights from his work as an emergency preparedness facilitator at the Tasmanian State Emergency Service and how we can better support accessible planning for emergencies and disasters. Richard has a background in urban planning, accessible tourism and transport, and has roles with Paraquat Tasmania, Disability Voices Tasmania, and has held roles, with Paraquat Tasmania, Disability Voices Tasmania, and as chair of the National Inclusive Transport Advocacy Network. He now works with communities across Tasmania to make emergency preparedness more inclusive. So, over to you, Richard, to present, and I'll stop sharing my screen. But yeah, looking forward to your presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate the introduction. I'm not into big PowerPoint presentations. This is all about starting a conversation. The only thing I will share tonight is one slide, if you like, which is the basis of our chat. Can you see that at all? Or just go click share?
There you go. Yep.
And is that on a full screen? Everybody can see that?
Indeed. Yep.
Cool. Thank you. So basically, just by way of background, this project is called the Person-Centered Project, if you like. We do focus on people with disability, but it does have impacts for everybody. It is at this stage at a household level, but on this slide, as you'll see, we call this the capability wheel, and this was developed through University of Sydney by a professor named Michelle Villeneuve. Has been co-designed by people with disability as well. The basis of this was basically because emergency services possibly have been left behind. Nobody really knew what to do or cared about or thought about how people with disability are going to cope in an emergency. And that's what we've heard from people that have had different disabilities. So this is basically saying, we hear you, this is part of a process, and it's a 4-step process. The first step being that identify, you know how you live, you know what you do, you know how to support yourselves, what you need to go through day to day. And in that there's 8 elements. So transport, assistive technology, health, personal supports, communication, assistance animals, and the living situation. Not all of those elements are going to be relevant to everybody, but some of them will. The second part of this process is knowing the level of emergency. So hopefully after tonight, you might come back with, or started tonight with, I'm not very prepared at all I'll start thinking about it or taking action. And these are probably the first 2 steps that we'll just focus on a bit tonight. The third is going away, having a chat, having a bit of a think about some of the stuff we'll talk about tonight. And the fourth, and it's really important, is to communicate your plan with others. So it's all very well to have a plan in your head, but to also write that down and tell people what you're actually going to be doing in an emergency. So there's a bit of an icebreaker. Now I live with, I've got a lived experience with disability. I've got a mobility impairment, 2 prosthetic limbs. So assistive technology is important to me. I'm a bit like a mobile phone, if you like, in that I have to charge my legs up every night, and I have 48 hours to, if I'm charged up, I have 48 hours. So if the power goes out, for argument's sake, for greater than that, I have to start thinking about alternative forms of mobility, or different forms of power backups. So I just raised that as a bit of an icebreaker. But I think for most people, issues around transport and communication are really significant, especially people who rely on others. And communication in terms of not only power going out, but if you rely on certain forms of technology or how you receive your information, and if that's disrupted, how would you cope? And speaking along those thinking about those issues. So I'm just going to raise transport, which I think is a significant issue for everybody generally, and issues around for people with that. So and I don't mean to make this all about myself just yet, because I'm looking for you guys to chip in a bit. Transport, I rely on others for transport. So Ubers, taxis, public transport, friends. So in an emergency situation, how would you go about if you needed to evacuate? And part of today is we'll talk about evacuating, but also the other scenario is you might need to stay in place. So, and putting some thought in around the access issues in terms of staying in place and your wellness in terms of if you're not being able to connect to services for a few days, and what you could possibly do to counter that or manage that. So I'll throw it to you, Matt, if that's all right. If pick one that's relevant to you, and we can just open it up and have a bit of a discussion around that. And then if people got queries, I'm here to guide, if you like. I don't necessarily have all the answers, but and don't always think about it in a emergency situation. If you do have to leave, it might think about it more of if you're going on a holiday, things you would pack for a holiday, and the reasons why you're not packing that.
Interesting. Just some general questions. So when we're talking about an emergency, are we talking about mostly like natural disaster sort of emergencies, or are we talking about more than that?
So it's across hazards. So it's not just fire and floods. It might be a storm event, like a tree coming down over your house or blocks a road, for argument's sake. Everyone might perceive an emergency as different. So landslides, heat waves, those type of things. So, and with each one, it's slightly different. So we do focus on a bit about power going out, and power's normally the first thing that goes out. And it usually goes out for an extended period of time. So issues around, say, if you normally use a mobile phone, do you have a charger as a backup? Because if your phone goes, what's your alternative form of communication? Issues around your food sources. So do people have a different cooking source? So like maybe a barbecue or so forth, like something, maybe you could use it at people use at campsites, those type of things. And then management of health might be medications. So if you're evacuated and you can't access your normal chemist for whatever reason, do you have enough supplies, or could you contact somebody that could arrange that for you? So they're just some of the broad issues. And communication, obviously, if people rely on apps to assist them communicate, what's their alternative to being able to communicate? So things like, I'll use an example here of people who might lip read. But if the power goes out and you can't see, do people have torches so people at least see lip movements? You might have to revert back to paper and pen type thing. So, but whatever suits, but it's having to think about those issues. And if people have thought about that, what do they currently do? And what works for them? Because my plan might be different to your plan. And the second part of what we'll touch on tonight is about when there is an emergency, there's 3 levels that go out. It's an advice, watch and act, and emergency warning. It's a national system. Advice is like a yellow with a flood. It's a wavy type thing with a house on it. Watch and act is orange, and emergency warning is red. And in a flood event, they're all with a house with a wavy thing, in a wavy motion. In a flood event, it's a flame type icon, still in a triangular format. And each comes with a call for action. So, and that can help you make your decisions on if you are going to leave, when you're going to leave. So an advice setup is, staying up to date. There is an event happening, but it's not too serious for argument's sake.
Mm.
And people may want to take action there, especially if you're relying on others. And that might simply mean, taking a bag and just going into the city for a few hours just to, escape what could be potentially horrible, especially if people have respiratory issues and it's smoky. So they might leave that area so they can escape that environment.
Mm.
A watch and act, that's an advice that's basically this event is becoming more serious. Conditions are changing, and if you do have an emergency plan, it's time to enact it. And an emergency warning is basically you're in danger and you need to take action immediately. And that might be in a situation where it's possibly all too late, and where are you going to go? So part of the whole discussion about transport is, okay, if you're going to leave, how are you going to leave and where are you going to go? So happy to hear people's thoughts if they've even thought about this or where they would think they could go, their friends, their families. But if, open that up to people and their thoughts.
Yeah, right. For me and us, we haven't thought about it at all. The closest thing we had to an emergency was a few months ago. Well, besides the occasional power outage, which is, resolved fairly quickly. The only emergency in big quote marks that we had was someone ran their car into the NBN pillar node down the street,
Yep.
completely flattened it. Um, and so we went without internet for a good solid 2 weeks because they had to rebuild the whole NBN node.
Okay.
Um, but it was a bit of an emergency from our business perspective, but not really an emergency on our health. So that was the only thing that we've sort of experienced. But the other thing that I thought of was we used to live in Launceston a few years back, and during the winter, with everyone running their wood fireplaces, it would create a lot of smog down in the valleys of Launceston. Um, and yeah, there's been a lot of discourse around that recently, where during the winter months, people, being struggling to breathe because of the smoke in the air. And I was just wondering, like, how do you handle an emergency like that, where it's your home and the air that you breathe is toxic to you? Like all you can really do, I imagine, is just shut all the windows, turn off your aircon, and just stay inside, you
Yeah,
know?
and yep, and that is what a lot of people do. We kind of, especially with people with respiratory issues. You spoke about wood fires, so yeah, in a bushfire, for example, exactly the same.
Mm,
Um, Hazy, shutting your windows, maybe even putting towels down around the doors or around the windows to try and keep that out, that smoke out. People who even are asthmatic have enough medications or puffers that can assist them if they so need it. So yeah, that's actually a good point. So whilst that's not an emergency technically, it can be for people who have respiratory issues that impact their breathing. So that's the management of health. What medications would they need to help manage that?
mm,
Easy on hand. I know this is probably slightly different, but people who are diabetic can have medications that might need to be refrigerated. So if power goes out for a number of hours, I'm not sure how long, say insulin and so forth, needs to be kept cool before it becomes useless. But it might be having just some ice packs and an esky so it can keep for a little bit longer. Those type of issues to think about. But in terms of communications and note there's someone here from the Theatre Royal, and whilst this is kind of at an individual level, if power does go out, say in the Theatre Royal, and presumably there's some kind of backup that the lights can flick back on, how would being a service manager coping with people that may have their communication needs broken down, if you like? So how would you cope with different people in an event where, yeah, the power does go out?
Yeah. It's thankfully not happened. We're very lucky in that we're in the same block as the hospital in Hobart. So we
Yep.
actually exist on the same generator little block, which is great for us. And also, if we did have a large power outage event, essentially what would happen for us in events that the show would be cancelled and we would be dealing with assisting people in leaving the venue as safely as possible. We're really lucky in the fact that in live performance, in front of house, working in the dark is our status quo. So we're quite used to assisting people through that. All of our team carry torches anyway, just as part of their regular job to assist with hazards and people moving through auditoriums in the dark during shows. Definitely talking about lip reading though is fascinating. I hadn't clocked that as something you would need to think about. So it's really helpful. But yeah, it's really, in any case like that, it would be a power outage would not, obviously, we wouldn't need to move as fast as a fire evac. So we can definitely take the time to move slowly and get people safely where they need to go. It's odd thinking about it in the job because once they're kind of off our premises, it's beyond what we can help with. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a funny one, and especially our building's kind of unique as well because we do share the building with UTAS, the Hedberg building. So we're also thinking about students who have personal evacuation plans and things within the building that we may or may not be aware of. So we may have a UTAS component of security coming in to assist those students in particular, outside of what we're doing to work with the public. So it's a bit of a funny one, but I always really welcome more examples and suggestions because you never really know how someone might need assistance in those scenarios other than just hearing more lived experience from people so we can better game plan how we might manage that on the day.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Danny, if you're prepared to, what something might like this setup, this approach, what's relevant to you, if you're happy to share anything in the chat.
Um,
So
so I work actually in an aged care facility, a nursing home. And so far, all I know is when we have an emergency situation, it's very, honestly, to me, it's like scary because like we have vulnerable residents in the home, and then we also have our dementia residents as well. So we have the emergency plan to prioritize the vulnerable first and prioritize the ones who are mobile first, and then we go from there. But yeah, it's sometimes like to me it's kind of scary because I'm thinking like, what will the family say? That's some of my worry. And I also put myself like, what if that's my mom, my dad, and my grandparents? So I really like this. That's why I'm taking this course, so I know like how to do it, step by step, and share it with the people at the home as well and my coworkers.
yeah, okay, thanks.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, was that somebody else there?
Sorry, I thought I was on mute.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, just I think management of health is an important kind of aspect in this, because a lot of people do take different medications. And if we kind of base, if it's a significant emergency, kind of plan for 3 days in terms of maybe not being access to services and so forth. So in terms of medications, it might be people need to, especially if scripts are running out, having that chat with your doctor, or even your pharmacist. So I've run a few like one-on-one sessions with a number of people, and they say, well, I live on top of a hill, so I won't get impacted by a flood. To which you kind of go, well, I bet you the services that you rely on probably will be impacted by the flood. So your local chemist might be shut for a few days. So what's the backup if you need that medication? Is there somewhere else you could get to or access? So it's issues around that. Or if you can't get that medication, what's the consequences of doing that? And how would you manage it? And it might be just having to keep a document with your prescription information for medicine, so and your healthcare cards and so forth. So to assist you if you do evacuate, so people have that information for you with you, so you can get that medication quickly. But yeah, we recommend having that chat with your GP and pharmacist. Some people do have their pharmacists do deliver, but thinking about if they can't deliver, how would you get that medication that you need? So I'm interested in people's thoughts in around that. There's in a home care set, home aged care home would possibly be a bit different, but issues about have residents had contact with their families on what would happen in an emergency if they did have to evacuate. Where would they go? Some obviously might have to go to the hospital, but is there an alternative place to go if they're capable? I'm going to, given the small group that we've got, I'm just going to talk about some of the issues that different groups might need to consider, if that's all right. But happy for people to bring up any of the issues you see on the screen there that you think's relevant, especially if people have personal supports.
Yeah, Matt speaking. Yeah, Richard, I just did a aha moment just then when you spoke, because we bought a home right at the very top of a hill in Burnie.
Yep.
And I thought, oh yeah, don't need to worry about floods here, no problem. And then you just said, well, what about if services you access get flooded or you're not able to access them? I went, oh yeah, didn't think about that. That just blew my mind. And then I was thinking, well, hang on, looking at sort of a map of Burnie, there's pretty much one major road, the Bass Highway going out to the east of Burnie. And then there isn't much other way to get out. So if that bridge collapsed or something happened to that major part of road, that would make it very difficult to actually get over to, somewhere like Devonport. If we needed to go out there, you'd have to go pretty far into Tas to find a road that will take you out east. So that really got me thinking about sort of emergency planning in a local area.
So in terms of trying to be prepared for floods, just for people some people are weather nerds, and look at the BOM website every day. They have weather forecasts, and it even helps you plan for holidays, really. They'll issue warnings in severe events or severe if there's big rain events. So if you see them and you're looking at, say, a couple of day forecast, that might be your trigger to go, all right, I'm going to go to the supermarket, stock up on a few supplies, might put in my script a bit early, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, and last year around this time, August, September, there were huge storms and floods across the state. You might remember, probably more up the north, northwest than the south, but huge winds that brought down lots of trees. Power was out in some areas for 7 days. And so people had to cope without power for 7 days. And people who might live in urban areas go, well, that's not my experience. But if people are experienced 7 days without power, people kind of have, trying to be prepared for that in the worst case event. So if you see the BOM, which is our recommended website for weather forecasts, and SES also do forecasting, put that up on our websites. Those type of warnings, that might be the trigger for you to go, all right, I'm going to stock up on a few, get some food and stuff for a few days. And yeah, obviously that access issue. And also thinking about your family and friends, and then having a chat to them going, okay, you're actually in an area that could be impacted. Have you thought about where you're going to go or when you're going to leave? In a flood event, that could take a couple of days, given for the rivers to start to swell and flow and the ground to get wet. But very different in a bushfire event where it's very weather dependent, winds, the dryness of the land, those type of issues. So, and roads could close very quickly in a bushfire event. And that's what kind of need to consider as well, especially if there's only one road in and one road out. And thinking with that in mind, okay, I might leave early, but where am I going to go? Now, and for people that do rely on personal supports that have service providers that help them get through their day-to-day activities, fair backing that those service providers are going to be impacted as well. So they might not be able to access their clients. And so what are service providers actually doing or thinking about in that situation? And we have run a few scenario days with different service providers to say, hey, in terms of that business continuity issues, what would you do? Because staff might be impacted just with their own family and can't access their clients. So how would you get that message that the regular services won't be maintained? So yeah, and in terms of communication, which is another significant one, people rely a lot on apps that they use their phones for different reasons. Now, if that phone goes down and you don't have a power backup, what are the alternative sources people use apart from paper and pen? I'll throw it out there. What do you think? How would you get your information? Trusted sources and so forth. If your app goes down or your internet goes down.
And Matt speaking. Haven't thought about that at all. If I could access my car, I'd charge it with the car. That's pretty much my main option. Because like I don't even have a radio. There's an old-fashioned, battery radio. I mean, if you don't have power, you don't have TV.
So you
If you don't have
touched
power,
on
you don't have internet.
Yeah.
So
the old-fashioned radio with batteries, highly recommend. And with that, torches with batteries. And then, setting up an emergency kit, if you like, just to put some things in there that you probably wouldn't use every day, but just having ready somewhere so you could easily grab if you needed to. So things like, and I go back to when you're packing for a holiday, some clothes, your radio with batteries, a torch with batteries, and if you are going to go somewhere, something that might entertain you so you're not sitting around bored, something that can entertain you and others possibly. Maybe a book, puzzle, whatever you're into, but yeah, just trying to take something that can try and possibly take the stress out of it as well. Yeah, and even possibly some cash. So doesn't need to be a power outage necessarily, but I think we've all had it where banks go down and you can't access or use FPOS at the supermarkets. Yeah, and just having a small amount of cash on you just to try and get you through for just to get some emergency stuff. Something to think about there. Yeah, and that's just some very basic stuff. And when I say clothes, it might be also warm clothes, not just taking in consideration the weather and so forth. So it can get cold at night, even in summer. Just thinking along those lines. And I think somebody had their hand up. Is that?
Yeah, that was me. I was just going to say power banks sort of spring to mind, a big chunky one that can do several mobile charges or recharge a laptop. But as I was posting in the chat, I then realized you'd also need to have a USB hub so that multiple people could recharge, or that you could recharge multiple devices off it at once.
Yeah, at the very least, a power bank of some description. Yep, absolutely. And even having spare USBs if you have them, as you said. So yeah, that's a good point. I'm kind of opening it up to you because I don't feel like I want to lecture you, but I just want to get you guys type of thinking. Medication.
One question.
Yeah, sorry, Matt.
Sorry, Matt speaking. One question in the chat from Danny is solar or hand cranked portable chargers. What are your opinion on that sort of solution to get some power?
Yeah, that's great. Some will be battery operated, so that's great. Nothing wrong with a portable charger. Something to think about with all those is hopefully some of those things are already charged as well, so they're not dead when you need them. So yeah, just even thinking about the simple things like that, just looking at it, maintaining it. So when you need it, it actually is going to work for you. It's a bit like running the car. If it hasn't been used for 6 months, it might not turn over straight away. So yeah, and in terms of, this might sound pretty common sensey, but not everyone leaves their house through the front door. People might go through their garage. And again, I kind of focus on power here, but if the power goes out, might not be able to lift the garage door up. So it might be some people, if you're going to be prepared, put the car out and have some things packed in the car already. And that will depend on the event as well. So it's a bit of a thinking of plan A and plan B as well in those respects. But yeah, let's switch it to, whilst we've been focusing on a bit on evacuation and things to think about. What if you had to stay in place, and what would you, because you think that's the best place for you, or it's an event you might think like, oh, it's a flood. I can put up with a bit of water coming through my house for a few hours, which you might get flash flooding, which we do from time to time. But again, if you couldn't access services, what would you guys be thinking about in terms of just managing your own welfare for starters? As in people to contact if you could.
Erica speaking. It's a great question. I'm trying not to dive straight into my work brain and think about more personal well-being as well. But I know my partner and I are both quite avid campers. So we've got a van that we just keep some like non-perishable cans and things in, which we've always found is just like great if we just want to go for a weekend, like half of it's done already. But certainly kind of applicable to this scenario where you've kind of got a little bit of preparedness there. And if you had to stay in a place, there's at least some kind of backup of food if you can't access supermarket, fresh food, anything like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, so you're thinking on the right line. Well, what's suitable for you. So that might be, you probably have some kind of esky that some people go the fancy kind of portable fridge these days, but not everyone can afford that. But yeah, things like an esky, little probably gas stop cooker that could assist with cooking just some basic food, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's things to think about. I'm just conscious of time, 6:15. Probably just thinking of part 2 on this, which you've kind of alluded to in some respects. Of everybody, I'll take a step back. What do you know what SES, the State Emergency Services, do?
Speaking, my understanding of SES is volunteers who go out to help people in crisis situations, whether it's tree falls on your house, you need someone to come chop up the tree, or tree falls on the road, you need someone to come chop up the tree, or helping people evacuate at a flood, things like that. That's why I understand the SES.
Yeah,
But
no, that's cool. Yep.
yeah.
Anybody else? That's pretty much.
Erica speaking. Also, yeah, along from what Matthew was saying, just any kind of response that goes beyond what kind of day-to-day emergency services might be able to respond to. So kind of larger scale events, and anything natural, weather events, anything in that regard that would go beyond kind of their scope of what they can deal with.
Yeah, so you've pretty much covered it. But yeah, that's on the, I suppose you both looked at during the event stage and part of the recovery area. But we also do a lot in the preparedness space, hence why I'm here today. But sorry to speak the obvious. But more importantly, we do a lot of flood guides, community flood guides in areas. So on our website, and I'll flick the link to Matthew after this for him to share, is we do a lot of flood guides in a whole range of different areas. So Huonville, Derwent Valley, East Coast areas, West Coast. So we do a lot of flood mapping. Coastal inundation comes into it. And then, yeah, that will give information about the extent of flooding. And it's based on not only modelling, but also historical events. So you show the extent and can give you information about the roads you could access and use, and what might possibly be cut off in an event. For people that can't see those maps, you can actually call us and we can talk through that with people. And yeah, I'll shoot you the links for that directly. I won't show it to you now, just because I'm conscious of time. But we do a lot of that with community consultation and in conjunction with councils. And it's a lot of information there for people to access in terms of flood events like Latrobe, Deloraine, Launceston, just to name a few, and in around Burnie as well. So that information is there. And as I said, I'm happy to provide that link so people can access it. And if people want further information on that once they've had a look, feel free to contact me. Does people know about the Tas Alert website and app at all? Does anyone have that on their phone?
Erica speaking. Yeah, I do. I also have the UTAS alert that kind of goes statewide. But the TAS alert one's really helpful. The map in particular is really great.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we recommend that. It's basically all emergencies type setup, predominantly floods and fire. If there is an event, a little triangle will come up and you can click on that and it'll give you the information about the fire itself. You can set up notifications and radiuses to get notifications and so forth. Very good if you're going to be going on a holiday. If you saw an event, something like that, you might defer going or those type of issues. It also has some good information in relation to documentation, something we haven't kind of touched on today just yet, but focusing on, if your phone dies, having important numbers written down so you can contact people. That might be your GP. It sounds very simple, but a lot of people don't do it. Like if my phone died, I'm pretty sure, like anybody's, I'm going, I know who to call, but I don't know the number, so I'm stuck. So just having some contact numbers that you could easily contact, and then so you can, and if you've got a portable charger and so forth, that would be, so you can also assist others. Maybe insurance documents as well, and things that might be personal to you. Might not be the insurance document itself, might just be the policy number. And well, if you're like me, I don't check in for my insurance documents that easily or readily, or regularly. So yeah, just having those type of things ready to go. And it might be like an old passport or a passport you put in an emergency kit, so you can identify and have something if you need to contact other government departments. So yeah, just little issues around that. Photos are common that people want to take, and maybe even using the cloud, so when that comes back up, you've got them. But yeah, things like that. We do have a few resources in that regard. So we've got like some fridge magnets that we distribute just as a starter, for people to think about. We've got QR codes on that. And just, yeah, numbers that people can contact if they need to. So for SES in a storm event, it's 132 500. If it's a life-threatening event, it's 000. But yeah, there's different numbers for different events, and there's obviously a whole range of national relay service. People have difficulties, hearing, or they're visually impaired. There's different numbers for different groups that emergency services use. So I'm happy to show you the links or provide some hard copies if that's beneficial for you as well. Yeah, so today is just a bit of an outline for us all. I'll stop sharing this if that's all right.
Yeah, Matt speaking. Yeah, Richard, if you have any resources we can send around to the entire group, community, happy to share that with the group and send out those important numbers. I was just looking at the flood guides on your website, and I absolutely love them because there's so much, not just text, but there's a lot of iconography on the website as well, which makes it really easy to just consume. I'll quickly share my screen just to show everyone.
And we have tried to make it easy English as well. So
yeah, it's sort of easy read / easy English sort of principles here, but we can just see at a glance what kind of things you need to quickly, put together, an emergency kit, for example. I love this little icon of a dog food here. I think it's very cute. And then, it sort of goes into reduce risk where you can, how to protect your home. And then, stuff on TAS alert, where to get information.
And they're the triangles I was talking about earlier.
There's the different triangles: advice, watch and act, emergency, act safe, look after children and pets, check on family and neighbors, tie down, put away anything could blow or wash away. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's fantastic what you've done. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and as I've kind of brushed over some of these issues, but if people want to go in depth for their own personal situations, we do online workshops, and we have been doing in-person workshops through different libraries. yes, this is relevant to all of Australia, and I think the CFA are doing a lot of person-centred stuff on their website as well. But yeah, this is an approach that is going around Australia, but we are the first state to have picked it up as a state. But yeah, in around New South Wales, Queensland, they probably were the first to pick it up and use it, especially around Lismore, Northern Rivers area, New South Wales.
Of course.
Have been very active in this space. But yeah, we do work with a whole range of different groups, service providers, community groups. So, but yeah, like anything, it's getting that engagement of people thinking, yeah, do I need this? I've only been doing this 18 months, probably 2 years when I was working with DVT, I suppose. And you hear on the radio a lot, going, get yourself prepared, get a plan. And probably like most people before I did this was like, yeah, I'll deal with that when I have to, or if I have to. This is actually people trying to get people to have that conversation. It's not a ticker box, as you can tell. It's not a ticker box exercise. It's, oh, haven't thought about that, or hang on. Yeah, I do rely on others for certain things, or you might provide help with others, if you know what I mean. So how would they cope without you, or vice versa? So it's having that conversation, identifying some gaps, and then going, okay, how are we going to manage this? So yeah, and transport, I think's the significant one, because if you can't leave your house for whatever reason, so plan A, it might be I'll contact a mate, or I'll contact my parents, or I'll contact maybe my neighbours. But for argument's sake, they're not there, and they're stuck because the road's cut off for whatever reason. Do you have plan B? And if you are going to stay because people think you're that's the most accessible place and it's the safest spot for me, having your property as well prepared as you can. That might include generators. That's not a cheap thing to go and buy, by the way. But thinking along those lines, having enough water on your property, because more often than not, especially in a flood, the water's going to get cut, will come up through the pipes. So we kind of recommend switching that off, just so you can stop the mess that's going to come up through your pipes if you cut off the mains. But then if you are going to do that, having enough water storage, or thinking through that, because that has consequences, obviously. So, yeah, I'm kind of going through all the different kind of scenarios, and it's not meant to be a scary thing. It's just meant to be like, all right, we need to think about this and have discussions with people. And that's about your networks as well. So, and getting communities ready. So, yeah.
Matt speaking. Chady, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do. G'day, my name is Chady and I'm based in Victoria. I've got a friend who's in a wheelchair who lives in rural New South Wales, and it occurs to me that not every house is wide enough for a wheelchair. So what are options for that? Like, what do people who are in wheelchairs do if they sort of run through their family and friends and go, none of your houses are wide enough for me to actually get in through the door, let alone can I make it from a guest room to the toilet?
That's the conversation people have to have with their friends and their networks. If you're only away for a day or two, and I say only if, but that some people are wheelchair users that are able to get out and walk a little bit using different aids. Everyone's different in a wheelchair, so there's a lot of different wheelchair users out there. So, yeah, it's having that discussion with people going, can I put up with this inconvenience for a day or two? If not, what are my alternatives? Is there a hotel I can use? Just for an example, I'm not saying that's the first thing you should think of, but what are your alternatives? Because an evacuation centre, and part of whole this is whilst SES doesn't look after and has control over evacuation centres, councils do. they're a last resort, and they're probably not the best place for you to go. Some, if you go to an evacuation centre and you do have mobility issues, some, I think, at least down here, will try and put you up into a hotel. But that whole process of then, discussing your issues and with everybody, and it would be organised chaos, I presume. So that might be easier to already have made that decision, knowing, okay, if I am going to go to a hotel, this is where I'm going to go. That's part of that discussion. And that's not going to be for everybody. It's for people that actually think about their own personal situation. So knowing also,
I'm doing research into hotels and motels, and which hotels and motels are in different areas that are well away from where an emergency is happening, and are they actually accessible?
that's conversations that, you have to have with people.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt speaking. Yeah, you can certainly never trust what hotels necessarily have on their website with their accessibility information. You always got to go in there and sort of see for yourself if it's going to work for you. I remember there's one hotel we visited in Melbourne, and it advertised as being quite an accessible hotel, but the doors to enter the hotel wasn't your traditional door. It was just a glass door, no handle, nothing like that. You had to know to put your hand on a specific spot of the glass door to open the door. And I was just like, wow, okay. If you can't reach that spot, or if you're blind, you're never going to find it. And your seeing eye dog or your guide dog won't find it either. They won't recognize it as a door. Things like that is, really interesting. You got to go and see in person. But Richard, the main things I'm taking away from this is having community ties in your local area is absolutely vital. If you don't have family, you got to have something else where people you can turn to for assistance. And the other main thing is just realizing, we are so overly reliant on modern technology in today's world. And we often do take it for granted, where we often just think, oh yeah, I'm always going to have access to the internet or power. And that, I use my phone all the time. Of course I'll have that access to it. But in an extended emergency situation where you don't have power and you haven't prepared, then you might not. So what do you do? And it almost makes me think of, older Australians who, aren't as reliant on technology. They're actually better prepared because they have stuff written down. They have that SES magnet on their fridge to call the important numbers when they need to. I really love your message and you bringing awareness to this, because it's definitely opened my eyes to some of the things where, wow, I'm not prepared for an emergency at all. It's been really awesome.
Thank you. Just before I finish, and you've just touched on, because you've got friends with in wheelchairs and so forth, but part of that, if they are going to leave or evacuate, that's having conversations with your people, that your friends, as you said, community that can help you evacuate. Because if you are going to leave, where are you going to go, as you said? So you might be entering in an inaccessible environment, but is that the better option than staying at home and hoping that the fire doesn't touch you? So again, obviously call 000 if it's life-threatening, but hopefully you're prepared enough and had those conversations where you can make that decision freely and confidently and go, this is what I'm going to do. So, and that comes down to some of those calls for action that we've touched on with the advice and watch and act and so forth. So that's probably enough from me. Sorry, I've probably spoken long enough, but I hope you got something out of it tonight. So I appreciate you inviting me and having the chat. As I said, I'll share my contact numbers and details and some links about online events and so forth if people want to go in depth on their own situations. But thank you.
Excellent, Matt speaking. Thank you so much, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure having you join us. And yeah, I for one certainly did learn a lot. And yeah, I got to start thinking about an emergency kit because I have nothing like that. I don't have a torch. So yeah, we should maybe get on to that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming along. And yeah, please do send through any information to share with the rest of the community. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you. Appreciate it.